Hello, welcome to Laura's Painted Minis. I'm Laura, and today, if you didn't notice the title, we are starting a new mini. This is, from what I had to look this up, but this is the Serpent King from Dungeons and Lasers Archon. It was from their Encounters Kickstarter a couple years ago, and I am gonna paint it up to look like a basilisk, like from Harry Potter. Oh, I forgot. I already got. Right now, I'll just be working on priming. I know that it's not necessarily exciting, but it's got to be done. I thought about working on the mammoth mount. It's in kind of the finishing touches stage, but that means a lot of what I'll be working on will be just little touches here and there of where I maybe missed something or accidentally blorfed and hadn't noticed it right away. So that means I would be just basically be going over areas and things that I already had. So it probably wouldn't be all that interesting. I realize this is also not necessarily all that interesting, but I also know some people just have some very strong feelings about priming. So I'll just figure, like, what the hey, we'll do some priming today. And if you prime minis, why do you prime them? Do you prime all of your minis? Or just some? I think quite often the conversation tends to go where people just say their opinion as fact and leave it at that. And it doesn't really encourage an actual discussion. So that people can actually learn. So obviously, I do prime some minis at least. You see me priming here, that's what I'm doing today. I'm just using one of my mixing brushes because I don't want to. I tend to be pretty rough on my brush when I'm priming something, so I don't want to be using my nice brushes. And it's got enough of a point that I can get into crevices if I need to, or like stuff paint down in there. I did wash this with very thoroughly with some warm soap or water, warm water and soap. I'm getting over a cold, so yeah, some brain farts. So I am putting my own 2 cents in, and I'll try and I'll try and give it why. I'll try and give an explanation and not just act like the way I do things is fact and you should do it too. Um, but I will try to give whys and then you can decide for yourself. Um, so my recommendation is if you don't know anything about the material used to print it, or um, you don't know the material much about the material that a manufacturer uses, like the resin, or if it's PVC or whatever. I mean, you're going to be able to tell if it's metal. That's something that shouldn't be all that questionable. It's going to be pretty heavy and it's going to be really hard and make a clink clink sound. There apparently must still be some mold release on this guy. Even my primer is not wanting to stick. But anyway, when you don't know like what the material is used, or even if you do know, like, okay, this company uses resin or whatever, and you just don't know the properties, you haven't gone to the efforts of learning what the properties are and whether paint adheres, acrylic paint adheres to it well. Um, it's better to be safe and just prime it. Because primer, the whole point of primer is to help your paint adhere to the mini. Also, if you're not going to go through the efforts of like washing them in soap and warm water really thoroughly, and even, I mean, I did that and I'm still having some problems here. Um, you're going to be wasting a lot of paint if you don't prime. So that's my 2 cents. Um, that's the situation where I say, yeah, you should probably prime everything. Do I prime everything? No. Because there are some things that I have um, ended up learning about sort of happenstance. I didn't necessarily go out of my way to learn about it. I've just heard a lot talked about the properties of certain newer things, specifically like Cyocast resin. Um, Usually something that's made in a Cyocast machine. Um, you can do pretty well of just washing it thoroughly with warm water and soap. And I I can't really even think of any times that I've had problems with paint adhering without um, when I haven't primed. And then also like Reaper's stuff. Um, I had heard about the fact that it ended up being like they were shooting for something, a different, trying to create a material for some other property, and then ended up finding out that um, the bones material allows really easy paint adhesion, and so you don't need to prime those. And just again wash with warm water and soap. And I haven't really had many problems. I haven't done too many of their new printed minis, so I don't know, and I haven't heard as much on that front. That's still pretty new. I've got a bunch of them now because I just got a bunch of the dragon hatchlings, specifically the Hiss, the one named Hiss. Got a bunch of those for a Harry Potter one shot, which this also was going to be for that. So that's why I don't prime those, is because I have ended up learning about the properties of those and that they do allow for really good paint adhesion, meaning the paint sticks. You're not going to see this quite so much where you lather it on and then it kind of pulls away. You will if you don't wash them really very well. That's probably part of the thing with this and why the primer is not sticking well enough. I've found that the dungeon and laser stuff have to be uber washed or something, because I've had this problem on all of them. I've heard about using rubbing alcohol as a way to clean, and I am very tempted to try that out on some of these minis to see if maybe I can finally not have to struggle so much again with these, getting a layer of primer down so that I can actually paint them. But I also don't know much about their material they use. I believe it says PVC on their boxes, or maybe it's not. Maybe they're saying they don't. I don't remember. I remember PVC being on the box. I don't remember if it said no PVC, or that's what they use. If you remember correctly, feel free to comment and correct me on that. I also have plenty of other boxes. I could go and look, but I'm just going to keep going because it's not, I don't think it's that important. Go and look it up yourself and double check, because I could be remembering wrong. It's been a while since I've actually looked at the boxes. I've had minis out that I know that I want to paint from that encounter set sitting out, so for a while, and so I haven't even looked at the boxes. The cats decided to abandon the camera today. Not much I could do about that. I've got one in my chair behind me, and the other one, as soon as I came in and started setting things up, she left. while this is drying, I can show off what I got done over the weekend on the mammoth. It is mostly done. And if you are on my Instagram, you would have seen some pictures, or my Facebook, or Threads. So I am technically on Threads. So yeah, I did some touch-ups of the fur, and then I realized I forgot some of the leather down here. So I gotten some of that painted up. I need to redo some of the lining around that so that it kind of stands out against the fur. Because between actually doing the leather and redoing the fur, or touching up the fur over the weekend, it's not standing out a ton. I did the seat, and I went ahead with my idea of doing the blue and red that I used on the Ninja Minis. And I kind of did a glaze over that, make it look a little dusty, dirty, used. I had forgotten about the tusks back here when I originally did the tusks. So got those done. Did eye work, did a quick little work on the eyes. Mammoth eyes are really not like too complex. So there's that. Just a few other things to touch up, or that I forgot. There are buckles on these straps. Kind of hard to see because I haven't actually. I had them basically painted the dark brown that I did the leather in, and I did that intentionally because it was so small that it was just easier to do that. And then I forgot completely to do the actual leather, which meant the buckles also got forgotten about. Alright, here are the colors I'm gonna go with. Kind of do a triad of this. This is specifically gonna be these scales. You can see on them in some places. There's also some of them underneath it too. But I'm gonna base coat like pretty much the whole thing in this because I'm gonna use this, but then on the scales I'll come up a little bit more bluish green. And then I've seen a lot of confusion on this sculpt about what this is. And to me, it actually reminds me of like snake skin, like them, like when I don't know if it's molting, if it's still called molting, or they shed their skin. So I'm gonna actually was kind of thinking through how to do that, and I think my plan, if I have time, is to just kind of get a bit of a uh, scale pattern in, you know, and then I'm gonna do a heavy glaze over it with like, I think I determined tan skin or tan skin highlight over that. So I looked at a few different realistic pictures of some snakes, and there was just ever so slight actual coloration still, especially when it was still on the snake. But that was like there was this very beigey um, tint. I don't know if tint is the right word over it, or filter, so to speak. So that's how I'm going to treat that. Because, I mean, it does look like it's coming off of the snake right there, especially. It's still all white, so it's kind of hard. There's not quite enough contrast for the camera to be picking up much details. But yeah, I think this will be a pretty cool mini to use for the basilisk. I think it'll be perfect. And I mean, there's stone ruins here. That was kind of a that was like one of the themes in the Encounters campaign, was like Land of the Giants, and it was kind of a bunch of stone ruins type thing. And even in the Elven Woods expansion set, like that had some, like I've noticed on the like green stuff. I guess I can just show you. This one I did. Here we go. Even on, this is from Elven Woods, and so you can see even here, like there's some ruins, some steps here. And rocks. Oh, there's another. So it was definitely something throughout that Kickstarter, it seems. It's kind of fun. They do. I think it's kind of fun. They do try and tie things together within their Kickstarters. Can show off one of the dragon hatchlings. This is supposed to be the one of the there. It's supposed to be 3D printed. One of theirs. So this is his. And people will randomly get a red colored one, and yeah, I managed to score a red one. Now I'm getting primer, specks of primer on it. Oh, yay. Being that it is a 3D print, it did come with a bunch of supports that I had to clean off. But they're real easy. Especially, I've got the Citadel mold line remover tool. It's out of reach right now. So that made it really easy to clean off the supports without like scratching up the mini much. I also recommend using primer if if you've got exposed super glue, like if it oozed out and you weren't able to get it cleaned up. Um, I've had problems, um, and it makes sense because it just becomes this very slick, smooth surface when it dries. Wasn't really created with the intention to have it, at least I don't think so, to have it dry and then be painted on. So I've had to learn the hard way of like really making sure that I pay attention to if there's any glue that gets squished out and to either clean it up or plan on priming that area. I am still anxiously awaiting that Reaper email about shipping for my Bone 6. I know not to be too anxious because their last update said they were only 25% through fulfillment. But they do have everything now, so that's good news, since that was kind of a big delay. Got some good old emergency vitamin C boost. started feeling it when I woke up yesterday morning, but then I do feel like I'm already kind of like in recovery stages and getting better. I think that had a lot to do with just my husband being willing to take our toddler with him when he went to help out with the first service at our church. And then basically the toddler was with him all morning. Because then he serves at 1 and then he goes to the second service. So I was able to get in a nice long nap right away. Not having any responsibilities, really. There's dishes piling up, but that's fine. I had actually caught up on dishes for once earlier in the week, so there really aren't that many. And a lot of them, they were just piling up because the dishwasher was full of clean dishes. So I emptied that out this morning and was able to put a lot of the dishes in there. It's now we're waiting for it to dry again. I think that looks like it's adhering a lot better the second time. I don't necessarily, so I guess there's another thing that I don't necessarily, although it's not, I don't necessarily hear it talked about, but I guess the lengths in which you go to priming, like, do you try and get to that very solid coverage type coat of primer, or just enough that you can tell that it's covering like a thin layer on top of the mini. So I don't know if there's people who have specific thoughts on that. Feel free to chime in. I personally haven't noticed too much of a problem if I just do it just enough that I can tell that the primer is covering the material of the mini. Actually went a little heavier on this guy just because I was having so many problems just getting the primer on there. Even more so than some of the other Dungeons and Lasers stuff. Who knows? But yeah, I don't have anything. Well, yeah, no, I do have something, and you already saw it actually. Let's zoom out. So this is Dungeons and Lasers, also the Elven set. This is one of the pieces from that, and I call this good. I can tell there is a layer of primer over the material. There's also cat hair. And yeah, that's probably all I'll do. And I mean, I did start this a little bit for a Patreon video. just on how I do stone textures. But yeah, I didn't have too much problem. Took a couple more coats of paint to do just because I'm then painting on white. And so it's harder to, because it's, and also because it's Reaper, because they didn't necessarily go for coverage. They went for the ability to use it for those, with those complex techniques or like glazing, layering, and such. So that means it just takes a couple coats, especially when you're going on, sometimes 3 when you're going over white primer. I'm sure I could get gray primer, but I have a lot. I've got Reaper's brush on primer, and then we've got this Vallejo primer brush up on. It's technically for the airbrush, but I've used it, and it's for a brush on primer, and it's fine. It works. It's a bit thinner, but I imagine that's because it's meant to be, was made to be used for an airbrush. It's almost dry. Well, it is tempting to jump in with the base coat, but I'm worried that there's quite a bit of this that's still pretty wet. So I'd have to be careful. And yeah, I'm not entirely with it with being sick, so I don't think that's a good idea. So I think maybe we'll go ahead and call it there for today. You can take a look at my sizing difference between the two of these. Like, I believe like this is supposed to be like a size huge. This was not, and I'll be clear, this is not a Dungeons and Lasers sculpt. I got it off of Etsy. Is from what if I'm understanding things correctly, is designed by Epic Miniatures. And there were multiple places, multiple Etsy shops that were printing it. So yeah, we're gonna end early today, this afternoon. And yeah, go check out my Patreon page. You can see the titles and take a look at the different tiers. I've got 3 different tiers. The lowest tier gets you PDFs, tutorial PDFs there's pictures in that. Then the next tier up gets you the PDFs plus tutorial videos and social shout outs, some other things, I think. And then the highest tier gets you all of those things plus a 25% discount on commissions from me for the time that you are on at that tier. That being said, that tier I have limited the amount of people who can get it. So first come, first serve on that. All right. Have a good Monday, hopefully, and I will see you Thursday night. Bye-bye.